Hello out there. How's everybody doing out there today? Good, you know, good day to you in video land and elsewhere in the world, in America, wherever you're at. Um, just make another interesting video that came to my mind, and one of the things that people never think about is what is going on right now um, with people in poverty, people of what they call of color. What is really a big agenda? As you look at past recordings, and they did a documentary about this. It started back in the 1950s and 1960s, about when the people were coming home from the service and wars, and how they would, before they come home, they would go out to the suburbs, and they would. That's how we got our suburbs in different states and different cities, and there was a higher upper class working family. And not too far out from the suburbs, they had factories and they had industries, they had machine shops, they had all the different things during that time. Some of your major corporations would go out in the suburbs, and some of your big companies go out in the rural, next to the suburb area, and you would have to drive all the way out there. And even though they buy up the land and they put their buildings up there, the property value goes up. And as the property value goes up, they start building houses not too far from the area. So there's people that bought houses and bought land out there, was able to construct houses, and you see it throughout the United States. They make cul-de-sacs and everything, and they slap up houses. And they can slap up a whole row of houses like it's nothing. They'll have a construction team out there digging up the land and tilling the land. Then they send out the construction, lay out the crew. Before they do all that, they have a construction to clear out the area to make it roads through there, put sewer lines through there, electrical lines through there, and everything. And this is very common when it comes to the area. And so in the area of gentrification, this plays a role. The people that control all that property out there in the suburbs, they had a vision that one day they would have to come towards the city. And for some reason, over the turn of the 20th century to 21st century, they had a vision back in the 20th century and so that once the people left the city because of the greatly mass integration of people that were in poverty and mostly poor areas, was predominantly poor black, and maybe about a certain percentage of white who are low income, and other people who are low income as well. So they had a plan. And if you look in your cities, in some you can probably recall that it was one areas was a poverty area where it was most of the neighborhoods was historically black, and that was in the city. So the plan is now that they go down to the city hall in your local city and state, and they find out, they let who own the properties. So they waited for a period of time where people just wasn't really up to par. The taxes started going up on the property, and so some of the properties, the owners, they got old elders. Some of their children didn't come back, and some people didn't come by, and was able to afford to get the money to purchase the property. Therefore, it pushed the outside of these entities, these people that own property, masses of property, and to some own average 3 or 4 properties, is in the area, and they live in one of the most well-to-do areas in the country, and they got hipped on the laws, you know, and that's why if you go online or you see on those videos about how they acquire land and things like that, and they have some individual that teach them what contracts, how to get the taxes and how to get the mortgage and how to get all these things settled. Well, a lot of people who are poor, who are uneducated, don't know these things, but they have friends that do know these things, and they have people that they know how to go down and fill out certain forms at the courthouse in order to acquire the land, and they know how to work something out with the banks in order to get that land up and running and bring it. And so when gentrification came in, they laid out a plan. And so whenever an area, like most cities do, they found the land was worth more than anything. So the people who have money, every city try to be like a New York City or Washington D.C. Even your Midwestern cities are doing that. They take cue from the bigger cities, and I believe some of these mayors, when they go and meet in different cities, this is what they meet up with the people who have money, and they say, well, what do we need to do to bring jobs and bring businesses to town? So they look at certain areas and look at the development and look at the area. You see these guys with the fancy suits, clean cut shaven dudes come around in some cars, and they negotiate deals and say, hey, well, we want this part of the property. And so they work out something that whoever find out who's a real estate company, who owns the land, and they work some individual with the bank and what representative own, and they start pulling strings behind the tail between the banks, the city, and the owners who own property. And so what they do is they offer a bid to the property owners that's been down there for a while. And so some property owners give in. They want to they want to get rid of the property. They just, the area, drugs, crime, everything. So they're ready to get rid of it. So how much you want us to offer you? Well, give me about 30, 40 grand, 50 grand. And some of them give up the property too. Some of them even do intimate domain. If you turned it down, they find a rule in the law book to take away your property. And that could be in the country or in the city. But they particularly if that land's worth some money. And this is where you get into collisions without in the suburbs. You see people fighting corporations like Walmart, Amazon, and Sheetz, and all these big corporations that come around because then they have to bring in the environmental specialists. They have to bring in all these different entities to see if they can improve the land. And the people out there, the residents out there, is trying to fight for them to rebuild because they're going to bring in all this access traffic, mess up the conservation life out there, the water systems out there, tap into the sewer system, and the water bill goes up, and even though the land kicks up in higher taxes, they put a new sewer system in the areas out there. People they having a fit because it's like we can't afford this. So they do this so they basically the corporation gentrified the areas out there. And if you're not a person that's well off, they're able to have the lawyers to fight with the people and try to prevent it. And as the group, and sometimes some corporations they know how to go within the laws, not the bill, so they have to find another site to go to. But the people who's in the city, where it's predominantly black, and predominant, like 30% white don't have the luxury to doing it. So so some of these people who have corporations and have opened up land out there for and make hundreds and thousands of dollars and probably close to $1 million with a $500 million corporation out there, and slap up a building and put a whole bunch of offices out there, and then companies come in and they start renting. So what happened was sometimes they figured, like, I think they got hip to, well, with some companies it's too far out, and so they want to do the trendy thing, what they see their counterparts do in New York and Chicago, and in places like that. So they start what they did was they got slick, right? They start going in the city and finding out that these old, some of these buildings and houses are old, but they're worth some money. In some cases, and so they buy the property, and all of a sudden they agree with the city, and they renovate the property and everything, and they jack up the rent. And so when they buy it off some of these owners, some of these people have to move because they no longer see what they no longer have a say so, and the owners of the property gave into the settlement, and that's how gentrification come in. And so this is what they did in the neighborhood. So you got to find a way that puts the pressure on the city's officials. Where we're going to put all these people who are low income, with disabled, with low income, what they do is they try to push them out in the suburbs, put them in certain areas of not too far from the city. But they put them out a ways, so the buses and other people have to go a longer ways. So whatever that land, or they put them in areas where there's a lot of industry, a lot of power plants, and a lot of truck traffic and landfills and things like that. They have a lot of environmental problems around. That's what a good percentage of the poor people go in that area. And so the good percentage of the poor people in that area develop symptoms over time that affects their health. Some of them develop, the water gets tainted, get with lead. You got, in some buildings, in some areas out there, the water gets tainted, and they get this old, messed up, jacked up well water or something like that, and it's not very good to drink, not even good to bathe. Then you got inhale whatever the fumes from the factories, and taking you get next to a power plant or one of those facilities out there, the chemical plant, and we don't even know toxins that's going through the air. So it's disturbing and tearing people up as far as the environment. And so that's where the poor goes to, where people who are low income in their poverty. So your kid develop disability, the elders that have some kind of dementia, Alzheimer's and things like that, and they plan this. They had a plan to do this, and it's really, that's what they do with those. Like, there's certain parts of the city I see in Columbus, that the area that they got little plastic factories around the residential areas where there's a certain demographic of people according to their income. This is where they put them at. They only own homes, but they got these factories and they got these chemicals and whatever these chemicals coming off, you can smell this stuff from miles and miles away, and it's affecting people over a period of time. It's affecting their families, it's affecting their children. But all the city is about is making money. Most cities, that's what it's about. It's about the revenue and money, and they don't really care about these folks. They don't care. They push out the poverty. and they try to push as far as out they can. So in a city like a Midwestern city like Columbus, Ohio, this is what they're doing. So you got these billionaire corporations buying up property down near the downtown area that they come back, and they came, and when they came into the area, slowly you start seeing building up in your Midwestern cities. And the poverty is probably happening in a Midwestern town. You live in a small to low Midwestern town, and so once poor. Once they allowed the politics in that area for the past 30, 40 years of stores that were selling alcohol, defrauding the U.S. state government of benefits, those individuals what you would go into a convenience store, and they would give you whatever for your food. They found a hustle behind it, so they got hip to the hustle when it came to these individuals who own these convenience stores. That some of the majority of them come from the Middle East or some country, something like that, and you ever notice that they dominate your food, and they got and some of the stores still exist in the inner city, and so they start cracking down. So they had to find a different way to, if they want that land from that property, they had to start giving them individuals fines of selling underage liquor, because you go to some people in the convenience store with them and their employees, they don't card nobody, so they had to find a strike violation against that. Then they start going after their liquor license, and but that was, so they start a process of going. So they start seeing that there's young people hanging around the area. Okay, so the officials figured that's probably where there's too much activity going on. It's bad activity, and so you have people that, so they start scoping out the area. People are trying to do little side gigs around the store, and there's prostitution around the store. So they allowed this to happen for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. And so next thing you know, it's okay. This area is really nuisance. So what we going to do? Well, this is where the second entity come in. So they buy out the owner of the stores or property in that area. Sorry about that. Wasn't that? And so they penalize them and push them out. Meanwhile, they'll come back in a corporation like maybe like a Dollar General or Family Dollar and put that store right in there like that. And so it seems like it's a good deal once they put in a corporation like a Dollar General in the inner city. So this, or Family Dollar, they move out these cats, some of these Middle Eastern cats, and these other people who have stores like this, because they say that they're like a nuisance. So the big corporations come in like a Dollar General, and you know that it's in almost whoever think a Dollar, usually a Dollar General is like midway between the suburbs and tip of the city. Some of them got hip and they come back towards the city. So that means they're gonna upgrade so that's their way of upgrading the area. And so this is what they do provide jobs and stuff. But once that happens, then it's okay. Then someone else buys some property out there, and next thing you know, you have a couple of buildings being sold, and somebody else, some from foreign entity or some entity from out of town come in, and they fix it up, and they start putting offices or something in there, or some kind of non-profit, maybe come out with a non-profit organization. But most of the time, most of the places are like architect buildings, attorneys going there, professionals like dentist offices and things like that go in those individuals. So this is what you're seeing, and that's why the neighborhoods is changing. So after they get these individuals in there, and there's crime going down, if there's a lot of nuisance things going down, the big wigs contact the big wigs down, say, be the voice in that area, and they start listening to them because they're higher tax paying based people, and they get the voice. The people who pays the most money, who's got those corporations, who got properties down there, they get the voice. They get when the fire come, they come. When the police come, they're coming faster than what you like. Wow. But an average citizen, well, it's going to take you a little bit because it depends on the area. If it's not a high tax base area, you get second next to learn. I mean, it's that's why you said why did the service take so long? Because you're not higher tax base. But the people who pay the higher tax base, oh, they get service just like that. You put a professional speaking person on the phone, and they find what the area is. Oh, there's a couple corporations down there. Get down there, and you see the band, you see the police, and every other. You get every garbage and every service just like that, because they're the ones that's paying the money. They pay them people to see some big bucks, so they get first treatment. That's how the way it is. Everybody else gets second, third treatment. That's definitely the difference between the haves and have-nots. And so it plays in the difference. So in the case, what happened, there was a rumor. I don't know if this is true or not. What happened in Louisville, this was with the Breonna case, that was a part of the case. From what it was, what was spoken, what was told from a few people, that they dig a little bit deeper. Like, why would the police just go in there and just do what they did? Why did they go in and just have a no-knock warrant? And they know that this area, they believe, is high drug trafficking area. Okay, so it had to be something deeper for them to do that. Basically, the area, where that area was from, there was people were trying to develop some land in there, but they had to figure out a strategy, and they knew that the area was high crime. They knew that there was some problems in that area, so it is believed that they've had to find a way to basically, if it's drugs or something going in, and keep an eye watch of it, and that is an area, and it's a high nuisance, a high crime area, which causing the gang, what they believe, whatever the gangs or drug activity in there. So they have to find a motive to push those people out. How are they going to push these people out of there? Well, it's high crime, and the land is, the people who live in the area don't know that the land is worth money. That's why I say everything is worth high value and high money. How do we move at this and find out who the property owners is? And like I said earlier, they offer them a deal. And so they slowly do a process of moving those folks out of there, because they feel like we get too many. Well, then they do all these individuals do the data and to see, well, how many calls, what they call the police chief, how many calls have been called to this area. Well, it sounds like obviously if we get this particular area down in crime, over police the area, it's like area officers making about 300 or 400 calls, whatever. So obviously it's something with the area. So what they do with the area is that they find out who owns the land, that there's another department to find out who owns the property and the land in the area. And they start a process. They do bid wills and things behind the door. So if they offers throw out a certain percentage of money to the owners of people that own property and own that land in the area, the people who are poverty have to pick up and go. And so they have to find another area. So they can come and bring in the higher people who have the well developments, that own malls, and who specialize in properties, who put in office buildings and like that, if it's towards the city, so they can make it like a haven to draw a higher tax base in the city, like you have in your other major cities. And so that's from what it was rumored. It was rumored behind that, and they said the mayor had knowledge of it. And how they do, they set up. That's was all basically about in every city. It's not just Louisville, the Kentucky, but it's in every city. Where they'll try to find an area where they know about the schools in the area, the residents in the area, how many businesses in the area, what's causing this effect. Well, they so-called saying, and so they put patrols in the area, how many fires, ambulance, public service in the area. They take a whole bit of data, and probably the housing, is some of the housing there. They send inspectors there to see if there's any littering, high concentration of litter, who owns a property, and they find them that way. So they start finding them if they don't clean up the area. If they don't, they let the overgrass trees, they let the trash get very high and things like that. So that's one of the strikes they start using. So the littering part comes in. So that means that the code enforcement have to come in. Okay, it sounds like whoever owns the property is not kicking up the code. And then that's where the land consider the land banks. Then they have to, once so people see that, they figure that the prostitute's gonna come in. They're gonna figure that the drug addict's gonna come in. They're gonna figure that the young men are selling dope on the corners and murder and shooting murder. And so they take all that into consideration of the area. Then they start what they call gentrifying the area. But this was based on, and it doesn't matter what person looked like, whether they're a black person that is the mayor, or a council, or it's a white person as the mayor. There's an entity behind the entity that allowed this to happen. Then they strike, and they let it go so far. And so they see people. They look at stuff long before these things happen. They look long years ahead of time. They know who to put in office. But it doesn't matter if the person is black or they white in position. It's the main people behind it. It's the main higher tax based people who have to say so. But people get, they get mad. They get understand. There's an entity of people behind it. There's an entity of people who have money, who pay a higher tax bracket. And majority of people who are upper higher class professional white people. That's a fact. So they're gonna listen to them more because they're the majority, and they control, and they can have the say of what kind of person that goes and who has the agenda. That's why people have given up on basically voting, because no matter who you vote for, if they don't have that interest and money and power and influence behind it, hundreds and thousands to millions of dollars, it don't matter. And then that's why some people, when they say, well, how come people don't want to vote? That's one of the reasons why. Because they go, it's based on the system of how your neighborhood is set up. And Dr. Claude Anderson, who I pay high homage to, high regards to, he tells you how the way the system is, because he was behind the system. He worked behind the system. He saw the way how the whole system goes, how the elected officials, how much money is thrown on the table. What do you have to do? The coming as a people, how the organizations, a combination of organizations, a combination of ethnic group, and they stand behind speaking as a voice of a people, and the people select that person to represent their district. It plays a whole array of things like that. So gentrification is the driving out. Also, when they do select people and they coming from different areas, you ever notice that like a high fluctuate? And I don't have anybody coming, tax legal citizen that come from some part of the world. But before that, all these groups of people start coming in from different parts of the world, they never took that much interest in bringing certain type of ethnic food to the area. I mean, when you live in the inner city, you had basically 3 or 4 dry day old food in your grocery stores, and so it was a lot of things that were lacking. But soon, to get up the population, they make tax deals with the people of their country, from where they come from. So the citizens are citizens here, dual citizens here. They get the best of the best in some cases, and they even, I don't believe they had to go through a credit rating system like the average American got to go through a credit rating system. If you want to get a house or you want to get a business going, a loan, there's special perks in there that they won't give to the average person who is working class poor to near poor or mom and pop working business. There's not too much funding behind it. So that's why it is what it is. But a certain percentage of the people who coming from those other areas, there's tax perks with them for citizens that they put in the law books that come from different parts. And they like the second wave of immigrants since the 1900s that come in and they set up shop and businesses. So you have a second wave in the last 20, 30 years, maybe longer than that, 40 years, of immigrants that are able to set up shop and get the special. But this time they get the special perks than like the first wave, or even more than the second wave of immigrants that set up loans and businesses and things like that and buy property and have land. And they control they let them have areas where there's impoverished areas, but the rent's cheaper, and they work out some kind of deal with them. So that's why you see all that's going on. And this is how the way it's run. But when it came to the African American community, the group was trying to get what the organization will rise up behind that. But it's too, I think, with African Americans, black people, that you had people that other entities want to put their sense in it. Unlike your other entities, they let them have their own. They let whatever group of people have it, and they don't run interference with them. They let them, if they need backup support, they will, but they let them do their stuff, have their own community, have their own. They set it up for them to have their own businesses, have their own everything, and they work in the businesses. They work out something with their administration, with their green card, visas, and things like that to allow them to be able to make a substantial living in that city, or where you live at, or cities that you, or towns, and there's some perks to it, and that's how they're able to get up stores and franchises and things like that. And they do have a special tax-based business for immigrants that are able to get them grants and loans and business. And then what immigrants have advantage over the Americans is because they support each other, and so they have a communication among their native language. And so majority are going to support their people if they're honest and everything, and they're going to get behind the ones with their native language. And that's why their business thrives. You see those, and they start doing pretty good. Little mom pop shops start blowing up like that. And why it's in the area, your average low income Americans is in the area, so they're going, if they got a store, they come in there to purchase things. It's open to it's open to everybody. But this is what's going on. So they come in a different way. So that's why you see all these different people that you in a low income property. You say, wow, where do these people come from? It's a combination of organizations that help them get there, that the representatives help them get through the door and get set up in this country to get special perks for them to get housing, schooling, and things like that, and they will open up and they live an American dream like you can even imagine. And this is part of the gentrification, and this happens in this is set up by both parties, your Republican and your Democrat individuals. So it doesn't matter; they were both had their hand in this one. So it doesn't matter. So whether it's a Democrat or a Republican representative, they represent all the people, even the people that's coming to become citizens. If it means pulling out special perks for them, that's what they'll do. And that's what they does have some special grants that they're able to let them know, and tax bases, and that it was years that believe that they don't have to pay that money back for 5 years. They get tax based, and I remember hearing this from people like this. Like, wow, for 5 years they had to pay no taxes. Yeah, that's what some of these immigrants have the advantage, and so they tax base free for being a citizen in the United States for so many years. So that's how they're able to get away with it. And then what advantage of it is, if things go south, if they got dual citizenship, they probably go to another country and get right out the door. Who's gonna hold them? And probably can owe a loan company and everything millions of dollars. What's Hallelujah at? Oh, Hallelujah's gone, man. He gone. He going to some, he went over to England somewhere. Opened up a business with his cousin. He got a cousin or a distant relative over there. This is what they do. And they got footprint in their country. And it's basically it all comes back to politics, because the politicians got some representatives that's in their country making backyard deals. And so you never know what goes behind the board. Making the paperwork is making a sign where they can make right for the citizenship when they get to the United States. Cost of living, area of area of the city, the state where they live at, and everything. And they want the numbers up when it comes to political. So they go to, this is where the politics come in, where these was the individuals that would promise these people the special more perks and everything. And they would make way for pathway to citizenship. That would make certain, not only pathway to citizenship, but have more in depth here than they did in their native country. So that's why you see a lot of people, a certain demographic that's near the poverty or poor that's in the city. And because some of them did come from war-torn countries, which is true. And they did, like with the Trump administration, that's why everything was unveiled, when the reason why he said, okay, these people gonna have to go back because it was because of war, natural disasters, and it was something else that they allowed them to come over. There was an open door. So they got the taste of the American life So they don't want to leave. They don't want to go back and have to start all over again in the different parts of the countries that they already got their little businesses and workplaces set up. And this is not just in America, but this is even over in Europe and different places. And that the country would take them in, but at a certain amount of time, once the wars is over, once that disaster is over, they're supposed to find some way that their country, their native country representatives, supposed to make a way for them to come back and rebuild up their country. If some of these people don't want to go, because I believe it's probably because the cost of living here, the currency and value of the dollar here, and and how much their dollar can stretch, they can of course take care of their family. In education, that they know that some of their children get higher education, and the children are sometimes obligated to help out their parents or get educated, and they go back and under the DACA program, and they go back and they help out their parents and grandparents from whatever part of the world that they come from. So that's why it's a big deal with DACA. See, the DACA is what those were for the illegal immigrants. Then you have another part of the immigrants that came up out of the disaster that the country suffered: war, war, natural disasters, and political asylum, because some people were trying to get killed. But that was basically what it was for. But a lot of people are trying to use that to say political asylum, because they believe that if they go back, in some cases, that they would get killed or get slaughtered during the war. So that's why you see some of the people here, and that's why they making headways and moves. But for the American citizens, like, wow, this person that they would dream to have that. Because you imagine being an average working poor citizen, don't have to pay tax base back for 5-6 years. Like, wow, you can open up a business. You don't have to pay taxes for the 5-6 years. You get the same special perks that the immigrant come from one of those countries. Those countries that they, let's say from the Middle East to Asia to Europe, some parts of Europe and different places, South America and some place like that, they can basically make a way through, and they get hit with the game. And it's an American that helped them get through the door. It's the representatives that you have selected helped them get through these benefits. It's the democracy that helped them get the benefits. That is set up in your neighborhoods, in your low-income poverty neighborhoods. That's the second wave of people that's coming. So wherever you ever knows that in the poverty neighborhoods, and you know that they have them low-end businesses, your little convenience stores, your little shops, your little check chasing places, liquor stores, and you see majority of them franchises, little local Subway, and there's some person who hiring immigrants that have making your sandwiches and things. Your food is Asian or Hispanic or things like that. So they hire them, or could be some Africans, some people, a person from Africa among the immigrants. And this is the reason why. So in one of the neighborhoods that they gentrify, that they push this, so you have the mixture of those people, the mixture of the poor black and certain percent white people, all confined in this area. With them run, that's why you see the cheap tire shops, the cheap barber shops, the cheap, whatever your service is out there. That's what you get. And when And you notice if you ever go, and once you leave that area, you have transportation, you have a car, you go to a wealthier area, you get the better foods, you get service. Like, wow, man, like in some grocery stores, they got little restaurants in there. So they have the fruit put in certain areas, and when you go in a city, you don't get that luxury. You get the basics. And it was quiet that it was said that the suburbs get the best, and they leave the second and third day for the rest from some of your major grocery chains. And like, I mean, go to it. If you, wherever city and town you live in, you'll see what I'm talking about. Go to a suburb, go buy some food, and if you ever go, and if you go the next day in the inner city, and walk around their aisles, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see food you never see down there in the city. The food is much fresher. The food is like not this food you never even heard of. Food that's healthy for your body, in some cases. You have to drive if you got a car, you got the blessing. If you got transportation, you have your own transportation. You're blessed, because most of those people that's in the city don't have transportation. Most people have to take an Uber, or they have to ride the bus. So they got to take whatever is what they offer in the city. Where people who have transportation, they got the luxury of going to another next 2 or 3 towns over, and you able to see the difference from one area of town to another area of town. How the food, just the food, the different things of food which you consume in your body is, and how the way go and look at the demographic of how the store is well kept. And the foods will, and read the date and everything on the food. And you can tell you by the food, and some of you who can inspect the food while you're in the poor areas, you can look at the food, can tell the fruit is fresh, the meat is fresh. you can tell the food. You go out there, I mean the meat looks so fresh that it's unrealistic. I mean, like some next thing. Some of the food, like something that's coming off the farm. They get the farmer's best out there. You get the farmer's less when you in the poor areas. And they know this. They know this too. It's a big process, and it's bigger than what you've imagined. And here come election time. Here's the kicker. These same representatives, they don't get questioned about stuff like this. But they the representative that you put in office, legislating your law, controlling your district, and having that voice of whoever's your mayor, your state representative of your area, whoever is the council people, all have a hand in this. All of them have a hand and allow these situations to happen. So it's very important on who you vote for. If this is for people who are low income, like I said, look like a mostly poverty area, and if it's in the city, it's mostly black, with 20% white and other people. That's what you're facing. So don't get fooled by this Democrat Republican. Don't get caught up in that, because when it came to the gentrification, they both had their hands in it to it. And if you ever listen to Powernomics, Dr. Claude Anderson will explain the whole procedure on how the way to structure a system, how start from the ground up and get up to the top floor. They demand the services that you need. That's why I highly respect, and I heard him talk about this with Dr. Boyce Watkins on his channel, on how the way, for the black, particularly in the black community, this is you have to go through a certain structure system as a people to come together as a people for them as a force to take you seriously. You have to send a representatives that really speak that say this is what they really this is what really is the problem. This is what they really need, and articulate themselves. Not just a bunch of hand out and throw a free chicken bones and say, well, here's the thing. They said, well, we'll offer you free education or so-called tuition free, but what about the loans? Because if you go to school for 4 years, you're going to have to pay back the loans, and they're going to put you in a position where you have to pay back the loans. When you don't pay back the loans, your credit gets jacked up, so that hurts you again. People trying to pay back those loans, and when you look on your credit report, which credit is a big thing here, if you don't pay back, they say put you in a certain category. So that's what they say. Go to school, go to school, but let the company put you through school. If you're not one of those individuals, and then you have to be particularly if you from the inner city going, or your children going to inner city, make sure they grab an occupation so they're able, if they do go to a 2-year trade school, they're able to pay that money back. But if you go to a 2-year, 3 or 4 year, and take out 50, 60, 70,000, over 100,000, near $100,000, and you don't have a job, there's not enough jobs to pay that money back. That money, I said, they're gonna get the student loan people. They're gonna get their money. They're like the second worst thing to child support. They'll repossess your check. You be working your ass off, and they'll take your check. See, they're gonna put you in some kind of condition, so you have to pay back that money. And this is what the Democrats don't want to tell you this. That says nothing for free, because someone's gonna have to pay for it. And especially they prey on poverty people. Well, they say, we'll send you to school. You gonna pay for the whole school for 3 or 4 years? Well, we got a certain low interest rate. Then when you figure, oh, cool, low interest rate, cool. But they don't tell you about the second, third year. There's some clause in the contract that you're gonna have to pay that money back. And what if you get laid off? So you gotta go work for us. Then you want these individuals that's trying to work a factory job, and you stuck there. So you got a master's degree or associate's degree, and you ain't getting promoted, and you compete with, and then depends on what age you are. That plays in the factor too, because they don't want to hire older people. They want to hire someone fresh and young. They don't want to hire somebody when they get to a certain age. So that plays against you too. So they don't tell you that. But see, there's a what if to every situation. People don't think about that. I guess they got you by the balls, as they say, one way or the other. So this is what they would do. This is what they want to throw at the African American community. Which if they fall for it, that's what you're gonna fall right into. You're gonna end up giving part of that money back to the government just for a vote. Yeah, they'll put you through school, but is it gonna be grant or is it gonna be loans? Because if it's a loan, you got to pay them loans back. They don't get them loans back on time, you're gonna be homeless. They don't care, and them loan people, they don't not care. They want their money. They will hunt you down. They'll find you. If you go to a small town, all of a sudden you see a letter at your door, and you think you done skipped and dipped out of town. Oh no, they want their money. They sent you, they paid for your school, they let you got that money, you got to pay that money back. And all that 30, 40 grand, 50 grand, and then you sleeping. I mean, it's like the worst thing like knowing that you're gonna go to jail if you don't pay that go for that warrant. Is that kind of feeling? And you sleep in restless night, how to figure out how you're gonna pay back the money, because if you don't, and you go to your job, your whatever your job is, working in a factory or some warehouse or some place like that. That's always, or some job, something similar to that, or some machine shop. You're gonna have to. They're gonna keep taking your tax money that you earn at the end of the year, and you got kids. And if you got kids, you're screwed. They just take all that. And if you got child support, and if you're a single parent or whatever, divorce or whatever, and you got kids, you're screwed again. So you just broke. So you basically just work yourself like a Hebrew doggone slave, and it goes right back out to the government. And child support, student loans, and they make sure that the next thing, the taxes that come after you. And that's what keeps some people in poverty. And this has come out of that's why some people in the community is poor. They've been wanting to come out the poor, but see, they set up the system for you to keep you in poor. They do all these systematic system, and it does cross racial lines, because and it's not, you don't have to just be black, but you just be white and be subject to the same thing, because your income, because you're poor, and you don't get that kind of privilege. You might get other privilege and other things, but you don't get that kind of privilege. That's an equal unjust. You don't get, there's certain privileges you get, but that's one of the things you don't get. It's equally to everybody. Everybody gets screwed. Like the hospital bills, they screw you. You know what I'm saying? With the low insurance rate, they screw you. Oh yeah, like these low. We take Medicare and Medicaid, but we're gonna cover this much, and you got a major symptoms, whatever. They leave you with the doggone bill. So that's what. And if you don't have insurance, you get penalized. You get penalized. Now you're in poverty. Now they say, well, what do you do if you're in a situation? Okay, you have a job, but if you went to school, you got to pay your loan back, child support, and you don't have, and then they got to take out for insurance. Then they make you get insurance if you work. Now you got to figure out how you're going to survive, pay the rent, pay utility company. You might be making a car payment somewhere. When you got to pay car insurance. If you don't cover the car insurance, they're gonna come. You get pulled over. They can take your doggone license, and then you have to pay another penalty for that. And this is what they do to people. So you don't have car insurance because the cop pull you over. You didn't show no evidence of car insurance. Then you have to go to traffic court. Then you have to pay the fine. And if you have car insurance, then you stuck. Now you have to be limited to driving into the area if the judge make you have mercy on you. I mean, they got you screwed when you're near a poor person. So they got you, and they know that you don't have the resources. And then it's the environment. So let's say you have children. Let's say if you're trying to keep a roof over your head, feed your kids. Those who you have kids, then you try to take care of yourself. Keep your transportation up so you can go to work, take your kids to school, at the same time work that same job, pay back the loans. I mean, it's just like, and that's what they do. So they know all this, and technically all together under the system of systematic supremacy, we all guilty of it. It's not what they call a white supremacy. It's a systematic supremacy. That's what they do. So they got you coming. They got you going. But they do that in the poor areas. That's what they do. And so when you go to vote for your representatives, try to let them know we're getting tired of this gentrification crap, because that leads to all these other things I mentioned earlier. That's what you need to do. And your voice had to come together to stop gentrification. You have to come together as a collectively. Because if you don't, they're going to keep doing this. And see, they got slick now, because they'll get someone, let's say, is black, but they got to They want to put their talking points in. Then you find out later on, it wasn't really for you. It was to reflect and deflect out what their agenda really is. That's what this thing is really about. I'm spitting out the truth. That's why things ain't where you live at is the way they are. And the crime is the way it is, the conditions the way it is, the living conditions the way it is. And what it needs to happen, it has to be a collection of people that has to raise a voice. And this first people who got the strongest basis in this inner city is the pastors. You got the land. You are the go-between to representatives of the city, because you're professional, and the neighborhood. You're the pastors are supposed to be the representatives. The second people are those who run the organizations, those who run, the food pantries, and those nonprofit organizations that help out the mentally disabled, the elderly people, the children, the educational system. Then the second people that they need to vet. Third people is the activists, who for the injustice people. They need to listen. They need to come together, and they go and sit there and make their demands among this, and tell them, or this is what we're crying out about, and let them know that you have the understanding the way things go behind the walls, what goes behind the doors, and it need to be put out to everybody. Everybody. When you discover this should be exposed. This can be exposed. This is what you need to do. Then it just have to. And then the fourth one could be an average citizen's neighborhood, which is your neighborhood blocks, which is next to the activists, which is your neighborhood block people. You have to come together as a neighborhood and as a side of town. Speak for your side of town. And then you go to the representatives. Then you go to your council people. And then your council people talk to the council people and the mayor and say, look, this is what's going to happen. But if you live still in the predominantly black area, this is what you do. You need to put your representatives in there, not their representatives that look like you. Your representatives that look like you, who have your heart and have your interest, and push them up to a different level, and that they will not get to the point, they will not compromise, that they will remember where the people put them at, that they know that there's truly injustice in the system. To prevent future gentrification, you have to get behind individuals like that. And there got to be a strong base for the poverty. And if you have it integrated where it's white and other, you have to speak for them, for the poverty. Be a voice, be a thorn in their butt. You have to get behind the people who are thorn in the selective council, city. There's people's thorn in their butt. You got to get out there, and that's good that for people who be a thorn in their butt, but be about the people, not about special interests, but for the people who is in their area, and make an example for them. That's what the people want. And in the way you can stop gentrification, you got to expose what's behind the door. Expose the whole plan. Get educated. Geopolitics and everything. Once you understand that, then they got you. Then you find the resource to back it and get the money to back you up. So that's my solution to that, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I rambled again this long, but until next time, I hope me have someone out there thinking that this is the proper way to do it. and get exposed to it and be aware. So you guys be blessed out there. Till next time, be blessed. Take care.